Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right, well, we're glad to bring you another Cloud Podcast. Today, our guest is Joshua Harbo. He is the Director of Product Support over at CreatorIQ. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us. And Artie, I have my co-host. Good to have you, bud. Good to see you again with all your beer taps up in the back there.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Joshua. Great to see you again. I know we had a pre-call meeting, but we also crossed paths a couple times, just physically, locationally wise, with our offices being next to each other in the past. So great to see you on. Happy to have you on this episode.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a small world in LA, right? With everyone working near each other, it's hard not to cross paths, especially in the technology world, in the contact center world. It's small, even though it feels big.
They call it Silicon Beach. It's the
Silicon Beach, that's
world.
right.
Yeah.
Much more desirable to be down here in Silicon Beach, right? Well, Josh, why don't you give us a quick 2-minute, 3-minute high level of how you got over to CreatorIQ and your path into this role of product support for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've lived and breathed support for like 15 plus years. It's kind of gravitated towards solving problems, mixed with like the people aspect of it, which I really love, and then getting into the leadership aspect, like growing folks, maturing technology and organizations from a support perspective, was really kind of my calling. So it's been primarily focused in the entertainment space. Fox, I was at Hulu for a bit where, Artie and I kind of crossed paths on Cornerstone in that same lot, and then I was at Activision before I came over to CreatorIQ. And CreatorIQ really is an interesting company, and they're really pioneering like the next generation of marketing from an influencer perspective. So they're a leading SaaS platform in the category, founded in 2014, and are really helping brands connect creators and like taking that marketing space to the next level. So director of product support there and helping them scale that their support org and working with those brands and supporting those brands.
Yeah, Joshua, tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit more. I know you talked about Hulu and a little bit of Activision, but you specifically help with viewer experience and or in the gaming world, the player experience, and now in this new role, talking a little bit more about helping and supporting people who are creators in the social media world. So tell us a little bit about what that is, because the majority of the people who listen to this podcast, we're really into customer experience, but we oftentimes don't think about other avenues where people are customers of an organization, like a player of a video game or a viewer of media. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hulu was an interesting one, and it's kind of jack of all trades, right? So Hulu was an interesting kind of diversion into like the typical support world. I got my Scrum certification, and I was really focused on the viewer experience tools aspect of it. So helping Hulu build tools that empower their support agents to, solve those complex customer issues quicker, provide more meaningful data back to the business, and really that partnership with product, right? So how do we build stuff to capture data to, solve those complex customer experience issues that viewers were having, and obviously in some cases self-service would be the preferable route. So how do we mix the build or buy conversation of integrating technology? So I focused on a lot of that side of the house versus more the operational side at Hulu, which was great because I got exposure to a whole different world, sprint cycles and product development and building and shipping and integrations and all of those great things. And then kind of transitioning into CreatorIQ, I'm kind of taking the helm there, and now I'm responsible for all of that. Activision, if I take one step back, Activision was on the player experience side. So it was really, how do we prepare for new product launches, which is, how do we get all these 40 million plus Call of Duty fans ready for the game? working with the studio partners on making sure we can support them. If there's bugs or issues, we're able to get that over to the right people, and communication strategies during all of these things. So a lot of moving parts on the customer. What is that customer experience side? And that was a lot of partnerships with cross-functional teams across the organization. And then data, and incident management. So kind of those were in my purview at Activision. So that was great to see, like, to be a part of all that like a giant, huge title like Call of Duty, and shipping that and being able to support that. And the team is phenomenal there. I mean, great leadership there. I mean, it was a really great experience. And then transitioning into CreatorIQ, it's the creator economy, right? So it's helping these big brands that are working with creators, you know, get those creators onboarded to the platform, helping them understand how they track their metrics, what they're looking, how do they get the most out of the product and the platform? So it's a lot of platform education, product knowledge, self-service, and then the technical support side of the house if something does break. How do we mitigate that and remedy that for our clients?
This creator world is a whole new world. But yeah, excited to dig into that in a little bit. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, I was just going to bring up, you mentioned, with Hulu and the, this build versus buy, strategy that they had. Like, looking back, like, what would you say is, some lessons learned from the building side of it before they went out and just bought a product that was already made? And what were some of the stumbling blocks that maybe you ran into because it was a build first buy?
Stumbling blocks. That's a good one. I think it's more on the relational side. Like, philosophically, people have like a strong, inkling, like, I want to build, right? And I think I was a little bit like that in the beginning. Like, you want to, write requirements, and you want to build something and bring it to life. But then you also recognize that, who are we? Like, what is our identity as an organization? And we're not a CRM, right? We provide Hulu as our product. And there are people in this space that do that really, really well, right? From, there's huge companies out there, Salesforce, there's Zendesk, there's all these different companies that provide like these services. So it is that conversation, you get the philosophical differences in build versus buy, and those are really interesting, and you're able to, challenge each other for the best idea and like what that looks like. So I think some of those things are always interesting to navigate. But I think the package solution versus best in class for each individual channel was probably something that was a learning experience, right? Integrating the best in class chat, the best in class email, the best in class phone, or do we have a package solution that does provide, all of that in one and keep it in house? Like, those were the challenges around, like, how do we, scale that in an effective way?
Yeah, when you're talking about your past history with Hulu and Blizzard, and you're talking direct to consumer, direct to player, direct to viewer, and millions of people who need some sort of level of support or help or access to FAQ pages. Talk to us a little bit about the kind of self-service mentality. Do you just have forums on Call of Duty so that people can research what their problem is and get answers? Are you guys going into Reddit and, like, answering their questions on Reddit? Like, how much is it solve for yourself, or reach out to us and we'll help you? Or is it kind of a blend or a mixture?
Yeah, I think it's a blend and a mixture, but I think it's also important, like Call of Duty specifically, or Activision, you really have to understand your consumer base, right? Like, it's important. The gaming industry is a bit different and maybe challenging at times, because there are all these different platforms. There's Discord, there's Reddit, Twitter is a big place to vent or, post highlight videos. And, like, it's a mixture of, like, content creators that are posting or trying to post, and then actually, players that are, having issues that need help. So I think it's a meet the player where they are in some instances, depending on, what's happening. And it's really, like, sometimes it's about who's the loudest. So sometimes Reddit is really loud about, something that was launched and their feedback for that. So you'll see even, like, the game studios are in Reddit, they're engaging with their, the fans, and they're talking through some of those things. So I think that was really cool of the game studios to be really engaged and active with their fan base. But on the support side, it was all driven a lot by, they did a ton of work there scaling up that self-service infrastructure, because I think a lot of the types of issues players experience can be solved quickly without waiting in a queue or, trying to talk to a live person. So I was really trying to like curate that experience to make it seamless and frictionless for them to get what they need and get back to the game.
Yeah, and I think the way they develop the programs and the solutions around like making it as simple as possible to go out there and self-serve. And I'm sure like even as you moved on to Hulu, I'm a subscriber. Like they make it as easy as possible, and then when you run into a glitch, you're like, I don't know what to do. Sometimes they make it difficult to find the number to call, or they want you to go web first and things like that. Have you seen these stumbling blocks just with how companies, or you've seen just in your experience, how companies push customers a certain way, even though maybe the customers want to be pushed a certain way, and challenges that arise around that?
Yeah, that always sparks a lot of conversation and debate, and I love talking about that stuff because it's like, of what is a true frictionless experience for a
Mhm.
consumer, right? Like if, and some customers, this is the persona conversation, right? And if you're truly looking at your data that's coming to support and you're you know sharing that information broadly, you can start to develop these personas like who your customers are, and then potentially building experiences based on the use case that they have on that particular persona. Because Hulu, and I think any streaming service. So I haven't had cable in a really long time. Even pre Hulu, I was always like, set top box with the giant remote is just not my thing. And I've been streaming for a long time. So when like an AT&T or DirecTV came out with their streaming services, and then Hulu was, we were in the process at that time working on the live TV offering. You have a lot of what they call like cord nevers, like
Mhm.
new gen folks that just have never touched a traditional remote. And I'm dating myself a little bit, but I had like a small black box with like 99 numbers on it. That was my like cable box back in the day. Um, and then but you have some older, you have like some older maybe millennials or people that are making the transition away from TV,
Mhm.
and they prefer to talk to someone live, to have them walk through, like, I don't really understand what streaming is, can you explain this to me? And self-service may not be the best option for them, so you want to create an experience that keeps them loyal as a customer and reduces churn, because you don't want the
Yeah.
support experience to have so much friction, or you got to go through 6 layers of self-service before you can actually find a number, or get a live person, because you want to create an experience for them that resonates with them. It's like, oh, I know where I need to talk to someone because that's my preferred contact channel,
Mhm.
and I need that in order to like unblock myself from whatever I'm struggling with. And then there's people that just they want to search on a forum, they don't want to talk to people, they don't want to text, they don't. So I think it's a balance of both of those things. How do you make it really easy for someone to get to someone if that's what they want? But then how do you put something there to self-serve, so you're deflecting contacts, and you're
Right.
not overrun with like hundreds of thousands of contacts in your center. So it is a balance, it is an art form to try to figure out what that right balance is.
And staying with that theme a little bit, channel of choice for your viewers or players or customers is extremely important. Meeting them where they're raising their hand or raising a red flag. What about in product support channels? Because a lot of the people who are viewing may not have the ability, at least not today, but you might spark an idea for them to create an in-app or on web page experience where they can get support, even if it's a simple chatbot or something more robust like an in-app help forum or something like that. Is that a priority? Was that a priority? Does that kind of keep people in the tool? So Hulu, for example, if I could get support through Hulu, like without getting out of the app or turning my TV off and going to my phone, I'm more likely going to watch more Hulu. I'm going to stay in that
Stay in
ecosystem.
there.
So what is that like? Is there a strategy behind it? Should you try to force people to stay in product, or is it just still it's there if you need it?
Yeah, look, I have always been a big proponent of don't leave the product to get help for the product, right? Like that has always been something I've touted for a long time. I think if you're talking about like TV and linear TV, even streaming TV, I think that's a challenge that I'd be interested to solve and see how the industry shapes, because you have the OTT side of it, and you may have a smart TV, and that smart TV is running LG OS, right? So then you have to build an experience on the Hulu app inside of LG OS that allows for some in-app support, right? I think web is obviously, we've solved for the web side of things pretty easily. You just drop a code snippet in and you got a chatbot that lives on the page somewhere, right? So I think those things are relatively simple, but it's interesting. I think Amazon did something similar with the Amazon app or Alexa app. They did have like something in app that they controlled that you were able to get help from. But yeah, it's an interesting problem to solve. All these different mediums for all these different products. Like, how do you keep them engaged in the app without having them to leave to go somewhere else to get help for what they're trying to solve for?
Yeah, and as the market changes with millennials and Gen Z, like that's the easy part, right? They know how to use tech. They've always been around tech, but it's getting the Gen Xers and the baby boomers and all of them starting to cut the cord, and because their kids or grandkids are telling them, hey, you guys, no need for cable anymore. Just stream it all. And everyone's buying smart TVs anyway, so it's almost being forced upon them.
Yeah.
So then it's just changing that support model or adapting to that a support model that fits all the generations is always going to be a challenge. And like you said, it's that balancing act.
Yep. And I think as machine learning and AI, like those things, as they become more mature, because I tried to adopt the chatbot solution early. And it's really just, decision trees, right? But how do you get to like truly machine learning with like automated responses that are contextual, right? I think those things that's an interesting piece there. So if you can do that in app as well, and like, hey, I know what your behavior is. We're able to see that you went here, 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 and then you broke. And we've had 30 other customers that have also experienced it. Let me serve you some contextually relevant self-service that might unblock you in this particular case, right? I think those are like the things that are interesting. Like, how do we get to that level of like fluidity in the user experience that makes it easy for us to identify pain points and solve them right then and there? And I don't think that's quite been cracked. I think we're doing some really cool and innovating things in the space. But that would be awesome to see.
Let's talk about CreatorIQ a little bit. Let's talk about the influencer market. Everyone I know in my generation wants to be an influencer on Instagram and make a business out of it and make money by sitting on the couch taking pictures of stuff. But little do they know that that's actually a huge business that goes behind it. You need an agency to help represent you. You need to make sure that you're posting the required amount contractually. You need to have X amount of followers and likes and click-throughs and all this kind of crazy stuff. Talk to us a little bit about CreatorIQ. What do you guys do to help in that space? Are you more on the agency side, so you're helping influencers, or are you more on the company side where you're helping source the right potential people for these campaigns? So let's talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the interesting part is like the answer is both, and I'll explain. So our focus is helping businesses scale their creator relationships across like all facets of their partnership. So that could be an agency that's working with creators. That could be a huge D2C brand, right? Fortune 500 customers. Like we have Unilever, Disney, Home Depot, H&M, Yeti, Figs, Bomba. Like these are some of the companies that work with us today that are our partners. And then we have agencies that are working with those big brands to run campaigns and work with creators, right? So our goal is like from discovery to relationship management to measurements and payments, like that full life cycle of managing your influencer marketing. The platform does it. It does it all. It's really, really amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I work there, like seeing how all this works. Because I was like you on the other end. Activision, I got a little bit of experience with creators, and they work with creators when new launches are coming. But seeing it on this side, it's like, oh no, this is like a full scale economy business. Like it's huge. And brands need help to manage all of that end to end. We like this creator. We like what they post. Maybe it's cosmetics that they're into, and we have a new cosmetic line coming out. How do we work with this creator? How do we get them to post our content? How do we pay them? How do we track and measure all of those things? So, CreatorIQ really helps, those brands and agencies power that entire ecosystem. So on our side, we're behind the scenes, supporting with platform, onboarding and platform education. And how do we, how do you leverage the platform to get the most? How do you authenticate your creator with all the different social networking requirements and, all of those pieces?
At what you said the company was founded or started about 2014, which 7 years ago, I mean, it seems like it was just starting, but it had been going for a while, but that's really when it started to blow up, this whole influencer and YouTubers and things like that. You really start to see you see it all over the place, right? At what point do the marketing agencies really start to grab onto it and say, we need to get into this space and need to start getting to these influencers because the brands are asking for it? Or is it chicken before the egg? Like, who started that ecosystem in that sense?
That is a really interesting question. I'm not sure, but from the things that I've seen, I think the agencies adopted it really quickly. I think they, obviously they're trying to bring as much value to their clients as possible, and they saw the market shift. And I think some did it faster than others, but a lot of the agencies that we've been working with, they've been doing it for a really long time. So I think the agency is probably a little bit quicker to adopt it than let's say a Fortune 500 brand. They're maybe a little bit more conservative with how they represent their content. But some of the agency brands that we work with, I mean, truly amazing folks that have been doing it for a really, really long time and super smart in the space.
Now, at CreatorIQ, you're the director of product support, so you oversee all of product support. Tell us a little bit about what the issues are that are coming in. What are the standard issues? How are they contacting you? I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of these people live and breathe on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is. Are they trying to reach out to you via those channels, or are they going direct? Is it in product itself, the product that you guys have designed? So tell us a little bit about your support structure and what are the intent types, or why are people contacting you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's B2B. We'll start there. So it's mostly the brands and the agencies that are coming directly to the team to talk to them. The creators come over when the creators hit a snag. And I'll talk about that a little bit because usually that's more on the social networking side. So we are working directly with the B2B clients, right? So, the Home Depots, the Unilevers, the Disneys, they're coming to us, they're asking questions. And I'd say it's like 50%, platform education. And, how do I do this thing? I'm trying to get this thing done in the platform. Can you help me? Can you, unblock learning, so to speak. And then, there's a portion of enablement and, making sure they have all the right setup and, we're configuring them correctly. And then, the other portion is technical, right? So we have an API call we're trying to leverage, how do we do this the correct way? And it's, a little bit more technical in nature. On the creator side, we work with creators all the time. The brands or the agencies will send creators because we also, just like any other influencer marketing company, have to keep pace with how the social networks are changing. So if Facebook decides to, today we're going to launch this new service and it's going to break a bunch of things across the board, but here you go. So, it's pivoting to those things. And I think that's probably the most challenging for most folks is like, how do I navigate the different social networks requirements for, authenticating or, pulling a post in or, whatever those things may be. Those are the places where we meet creators to help them understand, how to navigate the social networks.
Yeah, and follow-up question there, how do you guys adopt when there's a new technology, like TikTok, for example, where they don't have open APIs right out of the gate? They are building their ecosystem, their back-end technology infrastructure to eventually support that. But for now, I read an article recently that TikTok has more viewership than YouTube at the moment. So how do we tap into those types of markets without having the ability, because there's no open APIs or ability to really put our webhooks in there? Do you guys have a strategy for that, or is it we're just not going to touch that area of business until those become available?
Yeah, I don't think I can. I don't think I can say anything on that side specifically, but we are, generally, no, we are tapped in with the social networks and partnerships, and like, making sure we're keeping the pulse on, what's coming from the networks. And I think, for example, Facebook does a really good job of like publishing what their next version of the API looks like when you have to move over to that thing, to that particular thing. So, planning and resources, and on the product side, they work through, product marketing, and the executive side, they work through those partnerships with the social networks.
One of the things we always like to talk about, and you mentioned this at the very beginning of our conversation, is just leadership in general, right? As a director, you've moved up through the ranks. What's your take on leadership, how you manage, and how that's evolved over your career?
Oh, wow.
That's a big question.
It is. Lots of trial and error, being a young supervisor, you're trying to, put your best foot forward and lead, and you don't really know much. So it was a lot of leadership 101 books, John Maxwell, early readings of like, some of those books, and studying, and then, mentorship. I think a lot of people, my advice in general is like, find a good mentor, and, get some guidance. But I think there's a dog in the background. I think as I've grown and gotten a little older, I think, there's a book called Radical Candor that I really love. But I don't particularly like the word radical, because I think people take that word and it's a little charged. So my particular style of leadership is transparency through compassion. I think if you lead with compassion, and you're transparent with people, and you build that connection with them, you're able to do some great things. You're able to grow folks. You're able to put them in the right positions to be successful. Through coaching and feedback, and all of those things. So I think for me, that's how I evolved over time. Maybe a little bit rambunctious when you're young and trying to get in there and solve all the problems. And then now, I think transparency through compassion is something that I talk about often.
I absolutely love that. And the Maxwell books, I mean, that's just like, I think every leader has at least one of his books on the wall, on their shelf there. But hearing about books like Radical Candor, and just leading with compassion, it's changed over the years since our parents were coming up the ranks, right? The style of leadership, and the hammer and nail does not work anymore. And I think mentorship to me is the best one. I think in all aspects of life, right? Even outside of your career, just anything you're doing, having someone that's been there, has been through it, is going to be leaps and bounds more than what you can just read in a book.
Oh yeah, for sure. Experience and mentorship, has taught me probably more than, the books combined, because it's like being in those situations, feeling the emotion with the person that's going through whatever they're going through, or the operational challenge you're trying to solve, and it's stressful, and the impact on people, and how do you keep people motivated, and how do you all those things, those real world experiences, you can't really substitute for that.
So the nerd inside of me has to ask this question, because you worked at Activision Blizzard, and it doesn't have to be one of those, but what is your favorite video game? And second follow-up question is, how can myself or any of our viewers get any special like Easter eggs or tokens or anything that would be fun?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I play a game called Destiny. It's Destiny 2. I am like all in. I picked it up at Activision. I still play with the same crew that is still at Activision. We raid every Tuesday night, and it's like the best kid fun I have. It's hilarious. It's great. I am a super nerd. I love games. I love video games. So that is my game of choice, Destiny 2, Tuesday nights. I can drop the gamer tag if you guys want to add me, and we can play sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think they cut me off once I left Activision. They were like, "Yeah, no more game codes for you. I'm sorry." So,
yeah, what I noticed is that Hulu, Activision, even at CreatorIQ, the people you're supporting, a lot of them are cult followers. People who love a brand, for example, or love to be a creator on a specific social media, or a gamer who's a cult follower of a specific game, or does something religiously on a every other day basis, or even Hulu, that follow a specific episode or a specific, genre or season. I think it's kind of cool and different and unique. A lot of the people that we have on this episode, on these podcast episodes, they don't necessarily have cult followers. They usually have problems of adoption. How do I get people who are kind of interested in our customers today to be super, brand ambassadors and are extremely loyal to us and would give us 10 out of 10 net promoter scores? So how is that different? Do you see that as, different from the norm, that you've got these super users who may be a little bit more needy, but they're always going to be there for you because they love the brand, they love the title, they love the games, and so forth and so on?
Yeah, I think it's and this is an interesting one. I may need a little bit more thought, but I'll give you my knee jerk on this. I think it's about the experiences that the brands create, right? And especially being in entertainment, the connection, like the storytelling and the way that you're trying to, and capture that person in a moment, in a particular experience. Like if you're able to do that in a really meaningful way, then you got them for life, right? And I think that's the gamer in me is like, I get into a game, I got 6 people on, we're trying to solve a problem, there's all this chaos happening, and then we come out victorious, and it's like you feel invigorated. You feel like, holy, bleep word, like this was amazing, right? You had this experience. And I think entertainment does that. So Hulu, the brand's done a good job of like creating those storytelling experiences, especially the product team there was phenomenal. So they built an ecosystem that allowed for that to continue to happen, find new content, create new experiences, things to talk about. So it's funny that you mentioned that because my team would get a bunch of letters from people, like physical, snail mail letters from like avid fans. Sometimes, those like baby boomers with like writing a letter, please bring back this series. Like some really heartfelt stories. Like I watched this with my daughter while she was sick, and this brought us together. Really heartfelt things that people would write in. They're just passionate about the content that they're watching, and they reach out to the brands to try to so that. And gaming, they create those experiences as well. And gaming has just grown so much in the past 20 years that some amazing things are happening in that space. So I think it's really about creating those experiences. So brands outside of that, they can figure out how to create an experience that's lasting. It may not be as dynamic as that, where, you're shedding a tear after, a hard fought battle in a game, or, watching a tearjerker movie. But if you're, from a user experience perspective, if you're creating an experience that's memorable and like, oh, wow, this was like, I love experiencing things that's super easy, like minimalist for me, but that's my personality type, right? So if I'm, onboarding to a new product and I'm like, click, 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 that was amazing. And
Right.
like, that just, that first user experience is like, oh, this was great. I had a really great experience. And I think there are like key things along the way that reinforce that. I do think, and I'm going to stand on a soapbox for this one, I think that your support organization, and any support organization, has more to do with creating that experience than most people give credit for. And what I say is that because the moment they're having friction, that first interaction with support, if it's also frictionless, if it's also like, wow, that was super easy to get back into the product, that continues the narrative of, wow, this was really easy, this product was really easy to use, or they really solved my problem super fast and it was a great experience. That just reinforces that brand loyalty and reduces churn and like contributes to all those things. So I think as product managers are building and as support organizations are scaling, like that's why it's super important for product and support to be close, because you're able to conjoin those experiences across the life cycle of that user, and reinforce that particular piece.
Yeah, the more people we've talked to, it's about creating that frictionless experience, and it comes down to the culture of the company too, because sometimes legacy companies, they'll just put support off to the side, and
Right.
they won't look at the whole voice of the customer throughout the whole organization, really plan that out and make sure that every aspect of that customer journey is top notch. One of the things we like to do at the end of the podcast, and we've talked a lot about our experiences, a little bit about the gaming and whatnot, but one of your favorite experiences, right? What's an example of a brand that wowed you outside of Hulu and Active, the gaming company and whatnot? But what's one that stands out to you where like, oh, wow, that was really easy? The click, 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 and it was all done.
Oh, okay. I got one. 1-800-Flowers. I don't know if you guys ever ordered flowers from 1-800-Flowers.
All the time.
It's great. I love it. And I'll tell you 2 reasons. Not only do they make it super easy to order, that part was great, right? It's really straightforward. You order before 2 o'clock, you'll get your same day delivery, and someone that you might have made mad won't be mad anymore, right? Great. But it was my first experience with Apple Business Support via text and an iMessage, and it was so frictionless working with them. It was like I got a text, I talked to someone. Yep, we'll talk to we're contacting the florist. Give me 2 seconds. They came back, and I mean, I just literally didn't have to stop what I was doing outside to pick up a phone or go to a website. I just picked my phone up. I texted a few times, and it was solved, and it was great. I mean, it was so fast, so easy, and so frictionless, all within the app ecosystem, that I was like, oh, this is amazing. More companies that are mobile first in some instances should adopt some form of communication like that makes it super easy. So that was one that really stood out, that I was like, oh, this is great. And then I researched, how do we implement that where I'm at? How do we
Exactly.
Apple Business Tech Support? Yeah.
Well, that's what the good leader does, right? Because we all are consumers. We all know what a good experience feels like. And so as product support or product development, whatever it is, we all know what it should look like. And there's certain industries where maybe, texting doesn't play as well because there's not a lot of that. But on the retail side, already, this, right? Like just how easy the experience is to make. And I think it's a great example.
Yeah. I mean, we hit problems like this all the time at Textile, where someone has an order that hasn't arrived yet, although the shipping delivery estimated date is supposed to be today. So they'll call in, they'll say, hey, where's my order? It's supposed to arrive today. It hasn't arrived. And if there's a choice as a business, you can make the choice of either saying, we'll call the carrier. It's you call FedEx. It's not on us anymore. Or it's let me call up FedEx for you, or not even call, but let me give you the information that we know that FedEx has given us, provide it to you in a way so that you don't have to go that extra step to contact them. And, then we're having a 3-way conversation. Now you're frustrated with us and FedEx, and FedEx is frustrated with us. And then it's a downward spiral. But yeah, those types of experiences and companies that do that well. And Joshua, to your example, if they could pull it into the channel that the customer prefers and make it seamless, it's even better, especially if you're reaching out to 1-800-Flowers via Apple Business Chat and saying, hey, where are my flowers? They're supposed to arrive at noon. It's 12:30. They should be able to do the stuff in the background to be able to get back to you in an automated way, or even with a live agent through that channel, without saying, let me submit a support ticket. Let me get back to you via email within 24 hours, like that, without creating all that friction. So Love that example. Love 1-800-Flowers. I recommend them to everyone I know. I do have a life hack for everyone who uses 1-800-Flowers. Every time you go golfing, if you've got a significant other or someone that you're leaving for the day, buy them flowers, surprise them. You get to have fun on your golf day. You're probably going to be spending money on the golf course, doing whatever you want to do, or the opposite. If you're out doing something fun, like sport fishing or fishing, whatever, do something fun for someone who's at home, make them smile a little bit.
That's a great way to enjoy your golfing trip.
Already, yeah. I'm gonna put that in play this weekend. My wife let me leave a day early for my trip back to California for a business trip, and I get to go to the USC game and do some other things. So I'm definitely gonna put that in place after this podcast.
Oh, wow.
1-800-Flowers. Nice shout out. Well, Joshua, man, it was great chatting with you. You had so much insight, and it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was amazing. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. And that's a wrap for this episode. Catch us next time on another Cloud podcast.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.